Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden blueprint behind every single purchase you make. Yeah, from your morning coffee to your biggest investments, there's a predictable science at play, and we're about to map it all out.
So let's start with a simple question. Think about the last thing you bought. Could be anything. You might think, well, I just liked it. But for economists, it goes way deeper. It turns out your choice wasn't as simple or, as random as it might feel.
So in this explainer, here's what we're going to do. We're breaking down the economic model of consumer choice into 5 clear parts. We'll look at the science, map out your desires, face financial reality, find that perfect sweet spot, and then we'll apply it all to a classic debate.
All right, let's dive right in. At the absolute heart of consumer behavior is a simple 3-step framework that economists use to figure out why we buy what we buy. You can think of it as the fundamental blueprint for literally every purchase. It all boils down to these 3 things. First, what do you actually want? This is all about your personal tastes, your desires. Second, what can you realistically afford? That's your budget constraint, right? And third, given those wants and those limits, how do you make the wisest possible choice to get the most satisfaction? So how in the world do we tackle that first step, understanding what you want? I know, it sounds kind of impossible, but economists actually have a way to visually map out your desires. And it all starts with a pretty simple idea. They call any combination of items a market basket. Just think of it like a shopping cart. It could have, say, 5 units of food and 10 of clothing, or maybe 2 video games and 1 pizza. Any combo you can think of is a market basket, and you're basically choosing between them all the time. And this leads us to this really cool concept called an indifference curve. But to make it simple, let's just call it a satisfaction map. This line connects all the different combinations of stuff, all the market baskets that would make you equally happy. You'd be totally indifferent choosing any point along this curve. Now, these satisfaction maps are built on 3 really logical assumptions. First, you can always look at 2 options and decide if you prefer one or if you're kind of meh about them both. Second, your preferences are consistent. And third, all things being equal, more of a good thing is, well, it's a good thing. So the steepness of your satisfaction map at any point is super revealing. It shows the exact trade-off you're willing to make. Like, how many shirts are you willing to give up to get just 1 more pizza? That personal trade-off ratio has a name, the marginal rate of substitution, or MRS for short.
Of course, you can't just have everything you want, right? Desire runs headfirst into reality. And that reality, that's your budget. That's the second key piece of our blueprint. The budget line is a straightforward, hard boundary. Let's call it your affordability frontier. Every combination of goods right on this line would use up your entire budget. Anything inside the line is affordable, and anything outside of it, well, for now, that's just a dream.
Let's make this real. Imagine you have $80. Food costs $1 a unit, clothing costs $2. This table shows your options. You could blow it all on 40 units of clothing and get no food, or 80 units of food and no clothes. Or, like Basket D shows, you can get a mix, 40 food and 20 clothing. All of them spend exactly $80. And check out how this frontier moves. If you get a raise, the whole line just shifts out. Boom, you can afford more of everything. But if the price of just one thing goes up, say clothing, the line pivots inward. Your buying power for that specific thing gets smaller. Okay, so this is the crucial part. This is how we bring these 2 big ideas together. We've got our map of what you want, your preferences, and we've got the line showing what you can afford, your budget. The magic happens where those 2 meet. So the big question is, where do these 2 things, your deepest desires and your financial limits, actually intersect to make a decision? This is where the choice finally happens. First off, the best choice has to be something you can actually buy, right? So it's got to be somewhere on your budget line. I mean, why? Because any point below the line means you haven't spent all your money, and we assume you want to get the most stuff you can. And second, it has to give you the most happiness possible. So in our model, that means reaching the highest possible satisfaction map, that highest indifference curve that your budget allows you to just barely touch. And that single point where the 2 just touch, that's it. That's the sweet spot. That is your optimal choice. And here is the really cool part. At this exact point, your personal trade-off, your MRS, perfectly matches the market's trade-off, which is just the ratio of the prices. In other words, the deal you're willing to make is exactly equal to the deal the market is forcing you to make. That is the perfect balance point.
All right, with the theory down, let's apply it to a really fascinating real-world debate that we all deal with: gift giving.
So this whole framework can help us answer a classic question. Are you better off getting a sweater for your birthday or the cash it would have cost to buy it? Consumer theory has a very clear prediction on this one.
Let's use a practical example. Imagine a college trust fund that can only be spent on education. That's a restricted, in-kind gift. Now, imagine getting that same amount in cash instead. The in-kind gift forces you to a specific point, but the cash expands your entire affordability frontier. It just gives you way more options. The theory predicts that because an in-kind gift limits your choices, it can't make you better off than cash, and it might even make you less happy. The cash gives you the freedom to find your own personal sweet spot. Now, of course, this purely rational model doesn't account for the emotional value of a thoughtful gift, which can signal care and effort in a way that cash sometimes can't. But from a pure economic choice perspective, more options are always better. Economists actually have a name for this core idea: the carte blanche effect. It just means that if you set aside sentimental value, the freedom that comes with cash will always be at least as good and potentially even better than having a choice made for you. It really highlights that tension between pure economic efficiency and, the social rules of giving gifts. So the next time you're about to buy something, online or in a store, just take a second and think about it. You've just performed this incredibly complex calculation without even realizing it. You found the exact spot where your personal satisfaction map just kissed your affordability frontier. You found your sweet spot.